Let me introduce you to my panel. Right next to me, I have Rose Lucalo. She is the managing trustee at the Media Policy Research Center, but she has a very impressive resume in terms of who she has had under her wing in terms of training Kathleen Opendas of this world. She was the first editor at KTN, the KTN back in the day. I believe I was probably in primary school. It's an honor to have you on the panel, and you age gracefully, and it's good to have you on.
Thank you for telling everybody.
Next to her is Patrick Gadara. He's regular here. Thank you for coming. He is a columnist and a cartoonist, and the reason why we have him on because last week there was a meeting of satirists here in the city from different countries in the continent, and he'll have a bit more on that, as well as critique on how the media has done in the nominations coverage. Next to him we have Philip Etale, the ODM Communications Director. His title hasn't changed since the NASA new structure, but yes, he is here in that capacity, but has been a journalist here at the Nation Media Group. And next to him we have an independent. It's a season of independence. Vasharia Gaido, independent journalist and veteran journalist, has been the managing editor here for special projects at the Daily Nation. Now, with exactly 3 months to go to the general elections and just concluded primaries, the country is getting into high political gear, and you can expect the headlines to be more political than ever, and the same to be reflected and echoed on TV and radio. Well, tonight we look at the media preparedness for the general elections, given the performance covering the primaries. And I'll start there. Given what the media has done in terms of performance, and feel free to point out what has been done well and by who and where, or what has been done really, really badly. And I'll start with you, Rose. Do you feel that the media is prepared 3 months to the elections?
In terms of scope, I think they did a good job. They gave us a good, sense of what's happening across the country. So you can't fault that at all. That was pretty good. But I think there's a bit of a sense of not really getting into what this is all about.
Yes.
And it's not really linked to selecting the government that's going to run this country. So, I mean, I'd like to see a hell of a lot more to do with who these people are. What are their credentials? Who are we pushing forward? It's like an interview, and you're just, not paying attention to the CV. You're paying attention to the histrionics, So I'd really like to see a little bit more in terms of who these people are. What have they done before? Are we just going to substitute another batch of people without really evaluating them? And I hope media is going to dig into that a bit more.
But is that going to change the choice? I mean, is that going to be a thing of educating people so they're well versed in terms of who they're voting for? Or
I'm not really sure that we need to educate them. People know what kind of leader they want, but we're not really giving them any information about these people. I mean, I think I see people going through the nominations with questionable histories. And then there are others whose histories we don't know at all, And you must wonder, are people just choosing those that they know, that they've heard about, and media is failing them in not telling them about the others?
All
so
right.
Really, do you have a choice?
And some of the themes that you brought out will be discussed further in the show. I just want to get some, quick reactions. Patrick, from what you saw, were you impressed? Were you appalled?
I think I probably lean towards being appalled, but I'm fairly
Surprise.
appalled by how our media tends to cover things. I think I agree with Rose. I think the media was very good at reporting the politics of things and what was actually happening almost on a day-to-day basis, but not really delving behind the headlines and explaining why it's happening. And I think also when it comes to the elections, to the nominations and hopefully to the next elections, not just about the CVs of the leaders. It's also about the visions that they are presenting. And in a very real sense, there was no interrogation at all of why these people were standing to be nominated. What is it that they wanted to do? They all want this seat. For what? Why do they want the power?
Want to say they want to lead.
Yeah, but leaders where? And I would have thought that, the primaries, one of the great things about primaries is that they offer you an opportunity to interrogate what these visions are, and it actually offers parties an opportunity to solidify their platforms, to start discussing, to have throughout the entire campaign period and stuff, to solidify this is where we want to go. Mm-hmm. We have a situation for us where they say, okay, first let's get the people, then decide what we want to do. Right. Instead of, which seems to me to put the cart before the horse. Decide what you want to do and then pick the people who are best to deliver that vision.
Well, Philip, you must be happy with how the coverage of the NASA structure, the Pentagon, how it went out. I mean, there was a lot of focus on you for hours and hours at Uhuru Park.
Yeah, for me, I say to have a mixed reaction to the coverage in party nominations. First, I congratulate the media for being bold, trying to show everything, every bit that was happening in the field, and especially focusing on the aggrieved candidates, those aspirants who didn't feel like they were treated well by political parties. That one, I think, came out so well because heading to the general election, I expect the media to extend the same to the general election, because that openness and the free choice of what to show, what to publish, what to air, I think that should be extended to the general election, not reaching a point where they'll be told you should start spreading messages of peace, because political parties did not allow them to say that we need peace during these nominations. They were allowed to show anything and everything they wanted to show.
But if there's a tendency of violence around elections, isn't it, something to do in terms of a part of the media's role
we don't
preach peace?
We don't pray that there should be violence, and I believe there will be no violence. But what I'm trying to say is the media should not allow itself to be gagged by the state, as it happened in 2013.
All right.
When some players in the political battle for presidency or whatever were feeling aggrieved, the media, on the other hand, was like, okay, let's preach peace. Others were like, accept and move on. Such kind of things should not be allowed. But on the other hand, I would like to say that the media has come of age. And unlike in the past, during President Moi's regime, I think during Madam Ross' tenure in the media, they were not allowed that free hand to do what the media is now doing.
Right.
Like going to Jubilee House, seeing how the governor of Nakuru is being mistreated, such kind of things, were shown on TV, and they come out so well. But I pray that as we go to the general election, the media will be more objective, and focus on issues as opposed to sideshows like violence.
Right.
And
well, if there's violence, that's not a sideshow. That's an important thing to report on. But how we do it is the big question. Mashari, you've covered many primaries, and he says we've come of age. But is the situation as is, whether it's a murky primary or messy, confusing, is it more on the media or is it more on the political parties and not prepared?
Our political parties operate without any known rules. I think if they were organized, then they should be able to organize proper nominations for themselves. Covering the primaries was quite something, and I think it showed the enormity of the task ahead come the elections. And I think the media has a lot of work to do to be better prepared, because it is not just presidential elections. Everything now has become so important. Governors, MCAs, senators, members of the National Assembly, women's rep, and each of those must really be covered properly. It is nice to talk about covering issues, but there's one big problem. None of these parties have any platform on which you can interrogate. They don't have an ideology on which you can distinguish NASA from Jubilee or Chap Chap or any other thing.
Right.
They all have a photocopy or constitution of each other. As we go to elections, you cannot know what they stand for because there is nothing clear. They have absolutely no ideology. They have no known policy program. Our political parties are only special purpose vehicles for winning elections. Actually, they can be disbanded immediately after the election, and then 4 years later, another vehicle is formed. That's been happening since 1992, and it has not changed.
So when Rose
If I
says we
may,
need to interrogate, and this is a
Yeah.
point to you, but is it really because of the nature of the politics? I mean, what else do we interrogate if it's really around personality?
I think we have to remember we're, much as we've come this far, and I want to correct Philip, we did go to all those places, even when I was, I mean, we did have restrictions on press freedom, but we tried to cover everything. I think it was the time of political pluralism, and we were central to that. But I think that it's very important to remember our transition is not complete.
Right.
We're still in transition. Our institutions are still weak. Masharia is talking about political parties. Are we interrogating how they are handling their affairs? Where's the weakness? Where's the, who's not doing their job? Because fundamentally, it's supposed to run like a well-oiled machine at some point in the future, and clearly we're not there. We hear a lot of complaints about registration of political parties, parties that are not following the rules. Are we following up these stories as well? And I think it's a very important moment for interrogating the institutions that underpin the elections. A lot of them are being asked to vet on our behalf. Are we interrogating how they vet? What criteria are they using? When we talk about the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, we talk about IBC. I think a lot of attention has gone to IBC, but there's KRA, there's NCIC, there's the Ministry of Education. All these institutions are doing part of the job for us, and we have to make sure that they do it how the public wants it done.
Because someone said, I mean, without questioning the veracity of the process in the primaries, then we allow for a flawed body of aspirants or candidates now to go forward into the elections, and that is now reflected in what the outcome that we will have.
Well, that's true. As in, if we don't at the very beginning insist on certain rules, our chapter 6 of our constitution gives us a framework, and a large source of the problems that Kenya has is because we are not changing things. We've got a constitution and we assume things will change simply because it exists. But this is a document, that's all it is, a piece of paper. It needs to be implemented. So we need to be thinking ahead, and I think I'll say two things. First, it is true we need to look at the institutions that are there, whether it's vetting and whatever, to ask about the jobs that they do. And to hold them to account when they fail. When we've got people who have apparently at some point escaped from jail, still get a certificate of good conduct, we need to ask this question: how are these certificates being issued? But more importantly, and this goes to something that Masharia was saying, we know these parties are empty shells. But that doesn't mean we have to kowtow to that. Doesn't mean we don't ask them the questions.
Right.
Because in the end, it is the public and the public force that is going to force change on these people, and on these politicians. But the public has to know these are the questions it needs to be asking. So you've got to ask them, regardless of the fact that we know they're empty, what is your vision?
Yeah.
And let them get on TV saying we have none, because that makes people start thinking, look, what are we actually electing? So it's not just about getting good guys in. Are you actually getting good ideas in? And I think, like for example, the other day the president announces, we'll recall Parliament to pass a supplementary budget, and that will fix prices. Look at how the papers are reporting it. They say, oh, supplementary budget will fix this. All right, how will it fix it?
Right. The hard Jubilee. And I mean, you could explain how you transitioned into political communications and what have you, if you had to be bipartisan or, you know, non-partisan.